know about biomedical science, anything in biology that's based on statistics, anything in psychology and sociology. There's at least this much dispersion. One of the things that's actually starting to happen, these are actually more sophisticated modeling techniques than multiple regression. And one of the things that kind of grows out of that increased sophistication is a greater tendency for people to actually show you all the data points like this. The same way, remember like a few weeks ago we had some of those spaghetti graph plots, and they were showing you like what all the slopes look like, and it's this tangled mess, and they said, okay, here's the average. You know, this is what we know and do in just about everything that involves living beings. Once you get away from like your chemistry and physics, there's a few results you can get at kind of like the cellular level and cellular, subcellular biology, where actually the effects are so strong that you don't need statistics to look at them. But this is the way medicines get adopted. This is the way surgical procedures are compared to one another.
And why is there such a big emphasis on quantitative methods if this is what you get?
Because you have something rather than nothing.
You could get it with qualitative.
No.
Well, the same kind of magnitude, I would imagine.
Right? You might get something. Well, the whole qualitative distinction is an interesting discussion, but it's just it's different stuff that you get.
You can see what camp I'm in.
Yeah, that's a longer discussion than we'll probably do today. I do actually, I believe in rigorous qualitative research for some things. And I think particularly in terms of defining concepts. I think the qualitative critique of quantitative stuff about being too quick to reify concepts and adopt scales and sometimes too quick to quantify stuff is all accurate. Sometimes I think the solutions based on that critique are not too impressive. But I've seen some really good, rigorous qualitative research. What tends to happen far too often is that people do the critique and then what they call qualitative research is a little bit more like what I did on my summer vacation. I mean, I've seen people who really do the rigorous attempts to refute the conclusions that are growing out of your own qualitative work. And I think when you really get to that level, it's very impressive stuff. But especially in gerontology and social gerontology, I've seen far too much of the other kind of stuff. It's just, yeah, I know a few people, and here's what they told me. And here's the conclusions I'm basing on that. So yeah, good qualitative.
No, I don't.
But it also
wouldn't
get you up to this kind of group level discussion, and it really is a whole. It kind of comes down to: do you want to increase your odds, however much you can, and increase your knowledge about things, kind of bit by bit, or do you just kind of collapse in the face of the complexity and confusion that comprises real life? And this is what I like business, business decisions, economic decisions, policy decisions get based, as I said, like drug adoptions, among other things, get based on this kind of stuff. And the argument has to do with, are you incrementally better off with a fit that's around 0.2, 0.3 correlation sort of levels of effects, as opposed to not knowing anything and just doing whatever it strikes your fancy to do. And you can show, at least in certain situations, that you can save tons of money by increasing the percentage of variance explained by 1 or 2%. Like I had one of my clinical supervisors when I was an intern had worked in the Navy. I've been in the Navy before he was my supervisor, and he was with a group that did this kind of psychological research, looking for ways to improve the prediction of what Navy pilots were slightly less likely to crash a plane. They said that what their group was told is like every percentage of variance increase that you get in your regression equation saves the Air Force millions of dollars. Because these planes are really, really expensive. So just being slightly better at predicting who's going to crash and who isn't can save you tons of money in the bigger picture. But the underlying stuff, what's about like that? And you can go back and look at the paper to see just exactly how good the fit was. Now the kind of thing that they're looking for, and with these methods they're much better at, is for multiple regression, you'd run a straight line through this somewhere. And what they explicitly tested was whether was this a curvilinear effect or a straight line effect, and the results came out in favor of a curvilinear effect. That's one of the kinds of answers that you're getting out of this. This is all that individual variation that you guys were talking about when you said like you shouldn't place whose president is in group intelligence schools. Well, I remember this. Okay, so problems for SST. So everybody selectively attends to emotional material. If you get out of the Gero literature and look at just emotion and cognition more generally, everybody does better with emotion than with neutral material. And as we said earlier, at least young adults seem to focus more on negatively witnessed material. There's actually also some stuff coming out in the last few years that suggests there's a lot of task effects as to whether you get the age effects of anything. But clearly, recall for both neutral and emotional material declines with age. If you look at most of the bar graphs in Carsonson's publications, the neutral and emotional bars are all lower in the older adults than in the younger adults. It's the point that she's making is actually a relative point rather than an absolute point. It's the simplest way to say it is that the positive bars are less different. And with right task effects, sometimes even not different. Usually it's less different. They're not consistent, and there are things that, in particular, and Laura's told me this herself, they almost always use implicit memory tasks. So these are memory tasks where you're not told up front that your memory is being tested later on in the study, and it's much easier to get the positivity effect in implicit tasks. If it's an effortful explicit memory task, the effects are either smaller or go away altogether. And as I said from our own studies here, it looks like older adults experiencing a change in emotion actually show similar effects to young adults. At least with sad mood, they show it with a more cognitive task. And actually one of the things I didn't comment on explicitly as we were going through the graphs, also at lower levels of mood, it's very characteristic of laboratory-based studies of emotion in young and old people, that the older adults always come in at a much lower level of sadness than younger adults do. The absolute differences vary across studies, but the older adults are always less sad at the beginning. So we're getting similar changes and similar cognitive effects, but actually at lower absolute levels of reported sad mood. Future directions. What does and doesn't actually differ with age here? How much does cognitive effort and cognitive decline with age influence the infusion of emotion in cognitive processes? Does change in emotion cue the infusion of emotion in the cognitive process? Does something happen differently once we change into an anxious mood or a sad mood? And then what about the active efforts to regulate emotions and their role in aging? In general, and we'll come back to this again later as we talk about stress and stress control kind of stuff. It looks like older adults, on the whole, this literature kind of points to older adults being better at regulating their moods, and particularly regulating negative moods. And that's part of the reasons why older adults, at least up into the young and old years, seem to be less sad and possibly more happy than younger